So I want to learn about Age of Sigmar, and if you're a new player, I expect you do too. Now, learning the rules is one thing, but the lore is a rich tapestry of events, and I want to talk to one of you. If you know anything about Warhammer or Age of Sigmar 40k, whatever you want to talk about, even just factions, then get in touch in the comments. But I want to bring on Kyrian. So Age of Sigmar, I know there's someone called Sigmar, and so it's their time. What the hell's going on?
I will not go like into the debris of like, hey, this is started from Warhammer Fantasy, but we all know it's built on top of Warhammer Fantasy. Back in the day, their fantasy game for Games Workshop, and then they exploded it and made Age of Sigmar out of it. When I say exploded, it's actually how Age of Sigmar came to be, because after the world was consumed by demon and wholly destroyed, all the magic queens escaped from this like world that was. They started slowly crystallizing and forming a new land called specifically Mortal Realms. So every part of magic crystallized and became a separate land that like represent one of the core elements. That would be fire, light, shadow, life. What else do we have? Shyish, which is undeath or death, or like purple magic, and I'm blanking on other. All the magics were connected in a way to become crystallized form. And after that, the Age of Myth, I think it started. Not the Age of Myth, like a lot of time has passed. It became like after they were formed, we finally the emergence of like the known things as like gods and other stuff. Speaking about Sigmar, the Sigmar survived the explosion of the world that was, and he was stuck flying to the magic, like basically hanging onto it, like I don't know, it's like to a huge balloon through the etheric void, basically through the cosmos. And he was found by a giant dragon. He was like, "What are you doing? Like, I'm flying here. Like, can you help me?" And that's how he made friends with a giant dragon, and they decided to basically establish one of the realms as their own called Ether, which is celestial magic, representing one of the magic. And that's like the very simple explanation of how Age of Sigmar came to be. And then all the things started appearing, like gods. For example, first Sigmar appears, and other gods started rearing their heads. For example, Lariel, who previously was a very powerful elven mage, but became a goddess of life and everything related to life. And basically in every realm related to magic, there was a god who would, well, not rule specifically over that realm, but would be the main head honcho, right, of that realm.
Yeah.
With time, like, there was a lot of power struggles, and like there are basically three major epochs in Age of Sigmar, which is Age of Myth, Age of Chaos, and Age of Sigmar. So there's no reason to focus on anything before Age of Myth, to be honest. It's like, it's if you want to go very deep into lore, sure. But this is more about everyone has been doing great. Age of Myth is Age of Discoveries, where the magic and the technologies at their peak, everything is great, everyone is doing fine, but as usual, while everyone is doing fine, Chaos is slowly plotting, and that was the time when Chaos started slowly putting down the seeds of strife and I guess destruction into the soil of like human souls, elven souls, and other creatures that were living in those mortal realms. And then when it reached certain peak, all the hell broke loose, and we had all the chaos demons, all the chaos gods pour into the mortal realms to feast again on souls of matured creatures, because they were very engaged after the fantasy realm exploded, and they're like, oh, let's do it again. So that's how Age of Chaos came to be, and everyone suffered. Everyone suffered so much that some gods escaped, some gods died, others don't know what to do. And in Age of Myth, some alliances were made. For example, Sigmar made an alliance with Nagash, with Alariel, and even Gorka Morka, which is Orcish lord, and Nagash was a god of undeath. But that did not last, because when the Age of Chaos finally arrived, everyone was at disarray, and Sigmar did the only thing that he knew best: escaped. He's like, nah, I'm out of here. He went to Azir, he closed off his realms to everyone and said, I'll be sitting here, you deal with this. And he abandoned the entire realms. And so a lot of people still blame Sigmar for abandoning them. And not only he abandoned his people, Also, Grungni, I think, that's the name of the dwarven god. He abandoned his people as well, which is basically dwarves. He left them to protect the giant mountain homes by themselves. And yeah, they still blame him and still have not forgiven him for that he abandoned everyone in for Sigmar to help him with something else. Even though like there are more intricacies to this, but this is like a very shallow representation of what is going on. There's like, of course, reasoning for everything. It's like he actually left them because he wants them to be independent without gods and everything. But it was a mess, basically. The most important part in that is while Chaos was reigning supreme and taking hold of the mortal realms, and they were successfully doing so with Archeon in the like being the main general. It's a person who destroyed the entire fantasy. Basically, he led the charge. He's also present in mortal realms, and he is the main, say, he's not a chaos god, but I think he's like pushing on becoming at least a demigod, in the sense of like fighting with other gods almost on the same terms, and still like not being controlled by chaos, but mostly taking their powers. He still thinks he is independent. And yeah, and we get to the Age of Chaos. Everyone is feeling terrible. Everything is going crap because entire realms are being raided. People are getting enslaved or like becoming Chaos worshippers because just to save them. Like recently, there was a new box called Dark Oath, what was the name? Dark Oath Savagers or something like that. Basically barbarians, and they are represented as people who had to strike deals with Chaos. This is their way of life. Not because they wanted, but to survive, they had to venerate the gods that were present. So, but they still are like independent people, which is another take on the people of the mortal realms. But yeah, in the beginning, it was pretty dry in terms of lore. Right now, there's much more that we can like finally sink our teeth in, especially with books coming out.
Yeah.
And with Sigmar being called into his Ezerheim, or like Azir realm of celestial magic, he was preparing some kind of retaliation. So he was preparing his like people call them Sigmarines. Nobody likes that. His Stormcast Eternals are actually like very different from Space Marines, but it's easier to explain to someone who are they. Yeah, they're kind of like Space Marines, but fantasy, but they have so much more nuance to them. And then the Age of Sigmar comes when he opens Azir again and like basically strikes back at Chaos for the first time like in thousands of years with his Stormcast Eternal. And this is where basically the entire premise of the game starts, at the Age of Sigmar, where we finally are fighting back for the realm to reclaim them back. So if you would imagine right now the entire land is engulfed by chaos, and we are trying to slowly like take it back. And that's like very simple explanation. I hope it was simple.
So Sigmar isn't actually a good guy through and through. He's got blood on his hands from earlier on.
Yeah, he is. He's not without like fallacies, or like he's not without problems. But I think he's very human when it comes to this. And compared to like Emperor from 40k, who is venerated like a god, Sigmar is still venerated as a god, but he has been shown to have actual concerns of like, I don't know if it will work. He makes mistakes. He tries his best. It doesn't go as well. And basically, he closed the realm because he thought it would be the best. Because they had nothing to deal with chaos, and he was preparing something to deal with chaos, which was Stormcast Eternals, who are imbued with magic that is anathema to chaos. So he wanted to create something that can wholly destroy chaos, like entirely. So that's what he was preparing with his Stormcast.
So it's good versus evil. Sigmar doesn't have a model, does he?
No, he doesn't have a model because
he's like a god.
He's not fighting. Specifically, he fought in the Age of Myths. He fought giant god beasts, titans, basically godly beings. Right now, he basically given his armies a way deal with everything, but he is still like not controlling them, but like he's a general to all of them, and he's not participating personally in any of the fights. He even gave his hammer, which is like an actual war hammer that is on the logger, to his first Stormcast called Celestin Prime, which everyone thinks is a Karl Franz from fantasy, but we can only guess.
Because the armies do have like captains and stuff, don't they?
Yes.
You know.
Yeah. They have named characters. They have some very specific ones. Why the Celestin Prime is important is, for example, You know how in 40k it's pretty cut and dry, like everyone is bad, there is no good guys, and like everything is grimdark. Here it's more of like grim bright, like if that makes sense, as in like there is hope in the dark, and hope can come in different way, in different shape and form. It doesn't mean like we have a cookie cutter good guys versus bad guys, because there are Stormcasts who have issues, there are Stormcasts they have to go over reforgings, which we can talk about when we get to factions, but specifically, there's never a single thing that will be like, oh yeah, this is just very bad people. Like they're like more gray, but then again, you can always tell from the first glance, oh yeah, this is probably evil if you're talking about demons. Like that would be evil.
Yeah.
100%.
I do prefer the monstrous kind of factions to the Stormcast.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I didn't like when at first I started, I was like, this is just Sigmarines, right? Like it's just Space Marines, but for fantasy. But the more I am into the lore and the more I play the game and the more I explore it, the more I like Stormcast. They're very humanized, as in they're literally, their entire stick is they're trying their best not to lose their humanity, because they are a superhuman, because anyone can become a Stormcast if you did a great deed during your lifetime. As an example, there was a lady who was protecting her family from the chaos beasts that were invading, and she actually killed like one goatman with a pan, like a frying pan, but she did her best to protect her family, and Sigmar seen hope in her and took her soul and made a Stormcast out of her. If your soul is worthy, you become a Storm. One of the very well-known Stormcast, a named Stormcast, was just a medic who was helping a lot of people throughout his life. And then when his hospital was raided, he was protecting the people who couldn't leave with just like a candelabra, trying his best to do in the worst possible situation. And he became one of the most beloved characters, called Guardian Steel Soul. Or Gardus Steel Soul. And he has several books about him, and he still like writes medical tractates for people. He still likes all the stuff he liked as a human, but he's now immortal because of this becoming a Stormcast.
Okay.
Which I think is a good segue to go into the factions.
Please, yeah.
Yeah. What faction would you like to talk first about? Like any?
Oh my god. Well, and I've heard of Nagash, and I can't remember which one that is, but I have Khorne. I play Khorne.
Oh, Khorne, yeah.
Yeah. That's Chaos, right?
Yeah, of course. It's Chaos. Age of Sigmar has a better take on Chaos than 40k, because each god has a mono god faction, instead of like having this soup of all the demons in 40k, or dedicated Space Marine chapters that was taken by the god, like Death Gods or World Eaters. So yeah, Khorne is pretty straightforward. I'll be honest, Khorne is Khorne. It always will be a god who just likes fighting, represents bravery, represents honor, and will never go over underhanded tactics. So it's not only kill or like blood for the blood god, skulls for the skull throne. It's also bravery, it's honor, it's every possible emotion and related to chivalry, basically. So because the chaos gods are also exist because of the psyche or like emotions of human. That's how they came into being. So they do not only represent like pure carnage as like for Khorne.
I don't know what else there is. You'll have to lead me through, handhold me through the factions.
It's a point of insertion for Age of Sigmar for a lot of players of like seeing Stormcast or like, oh, Golden Boys, they're cool.
Angels, I think.
Yeah, and like a lot of people thinking Angels, or if they played 40k Custodians, like they look like Custodians a lot. They are changing with time. At first they were like very chunky, like very square, if you like design wise. Right now they're much more sleek. They look better. They look much more unique in design. Like they look like an actual infantry, but like they are bigger if you compare them like with the human models. They're still like heroic scales. They're much bigger, and their important theme is that they're immortal. First of all, whenever you become a Stormcast, you become immortal. However, you are now basically bound to fight in the wars for the realms forever. But what is forever in the terms of like immortality is the problem is the process that makes them Stormcast is not something that everyone can survive. It's called reforging, and this is what the focus of the 4th edition that is coming. So whenever somebody speaks to be a Stormcast, their soul taken to the Forge of Apotheosis, I think it's called, and they are reforged. And if they survive this process of their soul being molded with magic of Azir, they become a Stormcast. They appear in this like superhuman form of like pure magic, pure anathema to chaos, and being ready to protect the mortal realms. But this process is so painful that some Stormcasts go mad, some Stormcasts just do not survive. They like their soul just shatters, and sometimes even they would like just abandon their duty because they cannot like get rid of this feeling, because whenever they die they get reforged again and again and again. Like how many times you die, that many times you're gonna be reforged, and you will be summoned to the battles. Do you want that? If you want that or not. But there are some stories about like some Stormcasts going AWOL, right, or anywhere, just like leaving their duties. So, and the problem is the biggest secret basically hid by Sigmar that was hidden from the Stormcast, and what he's trying to deal with like his most trusted servants is how to get rid of this painful process, first of all, of reforging, and second of all, how to stop Stormcasts to lose their humanity. Because every time they reforge, they kind of forget a little part of themselves, so they kind of slowly lose their humanity until they become these automatons that like just know how to kill, which Sigmar does not want. He said like we can't lose our humanity, and that's why a lot of times he would specifically station his Stormcast in human cities so they can interact more with human, so they are not like, do not forget who they are. And our 4th edition specifically started with words Sigmar Light, so everyone knew that because it was basically an open-ended secret about this reforging process, and that people slowly lose themselves, and they lose themselves so much that latest model that they revealed is a Stormcast with a small human besides them called Reclusion. Those are basically your grandchildren that will allow you to keep your touch with humanity. Basically, it's like, well, grandpa, let's go to war. Let's not forget that you're a human. That's basically how they present it right now. But yeah, I think they're slowly exploring this more and more, and it becomes like very fun with time. It becomes like its own faction, its own idea, besides just, oh no, it's just Space Marines, but for Age of Sigmar. No, it's so much more. And the more I learn about it, the more I get interested in them.
Is a lot of this in the novels and stuff? Is it like deep reading? Oh.
Yeah, no. To be honest, biggest thing is like just getting your tome. Like Battle Tome has a lot of information. Yes, there is like some great websites like Lexicanum, which is basically a lore wiki for Age of Sigmar. And 40k, which is updated by people. It's basically a community project. And yeah, and of course books. If you find any kind of books, they're like churning out more and more with time. If you want to read more about almost any race, you can find something. Any faction, sorry.
Yeah.
So that was Stormcast, and I guess, oh yes, the only thing I forgot to add about Stormcast, it's an important case for a lot of people, is whenever you killed or like you die, your soul is stolen from Nagash. So Nagash hates Stormcast, and he hates Sigmar because Sigmar is stealing his souls. And Nagash is like, no, those are my souls. You can't steal souls of the dead. I'm the god of death. You can't do that. He said like, oops, sorry, mine now.
Yeah.
And yeah. So he kind of does not like that at all. I guess this is a good segue into Nagash, who became a god of undeath of Shyish, and he was the entire reason for 2nd edition. He, when the 1st edition of Sigmar came, it was Stormcast versus Khorne. It's our first battle against Chaos. And then the 2nd edition came in. Nagash looked at the Stormcast like, oh no, I don't like this. You're stealing my soul to like bolster your people, Sigmar. And he was his ally. So Nagash and Sigmar was allied to fight Chaos. And he was like, no, I don't like it. And he decided to become the greatest god of undeath possible by, this is going to sound weird, he reverted mortal realms upon itself, as in all the magic that was used to crystallize this realms, like this chunk of lands, ginormous like planets basically. Usually the magic is strongest to the edges, and in the middle is weakest, so it's crystallized, people can live there and so on. He reverted it all into the middle so he could absorb all the power related to Shaishan energy, which is purple magic, amethyst magic, however you want to call it. Basically undead powers, right? He also decided to eat all the minor gods of Shyish, because basically Shyish back in the days was afterlife. It's like it was the realm of afterlife, whatever people believed in. There was a minor god for that. There was a cool place for them to go after the after they died, and even people like living started coming into Shyish and living there among souls and everything. It was a very like interesting place, and Nagash said, no, this place will be mine. I want to be the only god of undeath. So he consumed all the gods, he reverted the polarity of an entire mortal realms, decided to absorb incredible amount of magic to then release what he called a necroquake, basically a tremendous amount of undead energy to turn everyone undead and be like, so everyone would be at peace. At least he thinks so. He's like, if I make everyone undead, everything will be great because no one will squabble. It will be the best world, unchanging. And yeah, his plans were foiled by rats as usual. It happened twice already.
Oh, rats, yes, Skaven, okay.
Yeah, because even in fantasy, he did almost the same. He used his black pyramid for some kind of amazing rituals. Skaven came in and like, oh, what's this? And they broke everything. The same happened the second time in Age of Sigmar. I guess I'm guessing he's hating Skaven a lot, but after they foiled his plans accidentally, all this magic that he was storing got released, and Necroquake happened. This is our second edition of Age of Sigmar.
Okay.
And when that happened, a lot of dead arose all over the mortal realms. That's where when we got our Nighthorns.
Yes, of course, yeah.
Yeah, so the Nighthorns are the it's just basically ghosts, right? Like it's just like funny ghosts. If you like ghost aesthetics, Nighthorns is the best race to play. So they were all over the place. Nagash immediately started controlling them because he is a god of undeath, and the souls immediately became bound to him. During that necroquake, it also awoken a lot of magic all over the mortal realms. That's when we got our endless spells, special models for spells that you can.
Yeah, we have those. I got those.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
They're cool.
So
They're cool.
they're very fun. Yeah, it's basically a physical manifestation of magic. I mean, on the table they don't look threatening at all. But if you look at some book, Age of Sigmar, specifically for an RPG in the world of Age of Sigmar, if you look at the spells, how they look inside.
Oh yes, I recognize that wall of crystals.
Yeah. You know, on the table it looks like small.
Yes. Yeah.
This is like huge. So basically every endless spell is a catastrophe. It's a cataclysm. So it's very hard to control. It's all over the place and usually only used in, well, you know, in do or die situations.
Yeah.
So yeah, endless spells appeared. We got cool models for those. We got a new chamber of Stormcast called Sequitors, who are basically scholars and would be like researching how to deal with this reforging process that I was talking about, and how to deal with the like entire soul eroding, how to deal with the painful process. And yeah, that was basically the entire second edition of like fighting Nagash. We got some new introductions to like more lore, why Nagash is not order anymore, and we got a death faction now, a death grand alliance, right? We got Nighthorns, Flesh Eaters, Soulblight Grave Lords, and Osiarch's Bone Reaper. Nighthorns are pretty straightforward, as I said. It's just ghosts. We have a main ghost lady leading them called Lady Alinder. It's just a very beautiful model, but I'll be honest, I'm not very good with their lore, but in short, they're very subservient to Nagash. They always want to do his bidding. There are stories of the ghosts who left his specifically control, but it's very hard to do. So not a lot of ghosts are able to do that, or like anyone who serves Nagash. Nagash is very tyrannical at his rule, but of course there will be like more stories about that. Like not everywhere Nagash is tyrannical. He's also benevolent afterlife caretaker. He's also this and that. It depends on like where you ask in Shyish, and that's I think the fun part of Age of Sigmar. There's so much untapped potential, as in like every realm like spans planets basically, because when we're talking about the size of the realms, they are huge, like insanely huge. We're speaking like planet size, like almost planet wide. But they're the most important part. They're flat. They're not circles. They're not planets. They're just flat.
Okay. Yeah.
So, which is funny.
Minecraft flat worlds.
Yeah. It's basically very flat, giant discs. So a disc world from Terry Pratchett, you know.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, so Nighthorns are ghosts. Then he decided to let me make my own Stormcast, and he made Osiarchs, as I called Osiarchs, Bone Reapers. Is just
yes, I have that book. I have the faction book.
Yeah, they're mostly bones. They are just. It's basically the answer from Nagash to Stormcasts. He's like, I'll make my own Stormcasts, but they will be like better. And so what he did, he will take 1,000 souls as an example, like that's an approximate number. He would take 1,000 souls and boil them down to the best warrior. He would take like best practices of people he needs and then put them into basically a power suit, which is a skeleton suit made of amalgamation of different skeletons to represent armor. So they're not actually skeletons, they are souls in a power suit.
I got you.
So they would become those Ossiarch's Bone Reapers. They're very loyal to Nagash. They're basically his main army. If he needs something done, he would send them over. They have a lot of fun lore about collecting ties. Maybe you have read about that, or teeth. I don't know how to probably.
No.
Basically, taxes. They collect taxes in forms of bones. Like they would protect cities in Shaiish and will say, yeah, we will protect your city, or we will not kill you all if you pay us tax of like that many bones every month. Like you have to pay us 300 people worth of bones, or like one in each, like in 100 have to give us his bones. How you gonna get those bones? They don't care. Like you kill people, you have to defile your graves. They don't care. They just want bones. When they get bones, they will get. They will protect your city. They will not kill you. If you will refuse, they will just kill your city and take your bones. They don't.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's pretty straightforward. Faction. They're very militaristic. They're very how do you say it? Like hierarchical. Like they have a hierarchy, right? Like a very strict one. Is that they have structures to them. Like they have like a very. I think they're called Catacross. Catacross is their leader. Is like is the main dude. If you have seen his model, it's a giant guy with a shield. I don't know much lore about him, but I know he's the main general for all the forces, and he hates Sigmar because he was sealed by Sigmar back in the Age of Mist. And so Nagash resurrected him and uses him as his main, I guess, general. General is the best description because they are very militaristic. Everything else, I will not be able to tell, but this is the gist of it. Funny skeletons. I really like their models. They're very fun, especially the giant catapult, which has hamster wheels and skeletons inside.
Right, yeah. Well, we have them. We've built them. We haven't done anything other than undercut them white. We got that far. So
yeah. So Ossiarchs. Then we have Flesh Eaters. Flesh Eaters is something that Nagash doesn't want to deal with at all. He actually fears them because they have delusions, giant delusions. They have been the main, the last box to be released in 3rd edition. They got like a huge range update. Not huge, but like a range update. They are basically Knights of Bretonnia. If you remember those from fantasy, if not, then they basically see themselves as knights, as chivalric and like honorable knights, but they're actually terrible, terrible creatures of madness and gore. So they look terrifying, but they actually see themselves as a court of ladies and so that's how they operate. So grand delusions. And your delusions can be anything. They all stem from several strongest Flesh Eater I think they're called Mortrax or those weird names of Age of Sigmar, you know. But let's call them kings. Yeah. So basically kings that spread their delusions, and the more people get soaked in them, the more they think they're serving a king or a lady or someone else related to like knightly cause. So when they're like, I don't know, invading the city, they're thinking, oh, we're fighting chaos, or oh, we are saving someone from something else. They see everyone around them as peasants, as people, even though they will be actually at that time eating someone alive or something. So they're very gruesome race, but there are some interesting stories about them. For example, how one of the cities of Sigma people used to be posing as peasants, giving gifts to the Flesh Eater courts, and when they were invaded by chaos or something, like they had to fight someone, they called for them for their help, and they came and like fought chaos. But you can never be sure that they will be fighting the right thing because it's their delusions, and they're like basically a wild card. They can fight anyone they want. They are very fascinating. One of the most fascinating factions in the Age of Sigmar, but they have very like poor range, I think. Like the latest update was amazing. The Usharan model is incredible. It's so beautiful. But the range still suffers from like being very homogenic, as in like if you look at them, like you will have no centerpiece to like look at besides Usharan, which is a big problem because they are basically ghouls that were separated from vampires from back in the day. Because what the Games Workshop did, they took several ranges, separated them, and they became their own factions. Now with time, they're getting cool rules, they're finally being molded into something unique, but they suffered a lot in the 1st edition and 2nd as well. That was for Flesh Eater courts, and the last race in Death would be Soulblight Gravelords. It's basically vampires. You like
Oh,
vampires
right.
and necromancy? You're playing those. They had to rename them from vampires because they want to have, trademark stuff. Yeah. Instead of orcs, we get orcs. Instead of
Yeah.
vampires, we get Soulblight Gravelords. About them, I'll be honest, right now I think they are in a place where they're still figuring them out. At first they started as like your usual necromancy vampire stuff, which was basically a leftover from fantasy. They even steals the same characters from back in the fantasy. But now they're slowly molding them into something else. We see a lot of beast motifs, so like werewolves and everything appearing in the range, but they're still exploring. There's nothing like... I'm certain people who play Black Gravelords or like are very big onto their lore will tell me that they're much better, but I've seen there have been no like range expansion, if that makes sense, because we haven't seen any big models or releases besides Cursed City. It's a board game for Age of Sigmar, which was focusing on exploring one of the Shaishan cities with a band of heroes, and you would fight vampire gravelords with very cool models. There was Radukar the Wolf, who is like just a vampire, and he would lead his Khazar guards, very cool looking zombies and so on. So if you're into necromancy and everything, that would be the faction to choose. And that's it for Death. That's the entire Death faction. So it's only 4 factions, which is very easy to go through. And they have a very specific... They serve very specific needs, I think, because like Ossiarchs is all about skeletons. Nighthaunts is just ghosts. We have Delusion... Illusion Crypt Ghosts who are thinking of themselves as knight.
Insane people.
Yeah, insane people. And they give so much opportunity to just role play them as like however you'd like. As in like you want to paint them however you like, you want to kit bash them with something. It gives you like plenty of opportunities. And then Soulblight Gravelords is vampires, so it's all necromancy, right?
Yeah.
I think they will be separating from necromancy because we have Ossiarchs who are skeletons. So I think they will be slowly moving away from skeleton stuff. All right, so Destruction. Destruction is right now will be one less range because we have Bone Splitters being removed from the Age of Sigmar. Bone Splitters are basically naked orcs. From fantasy, they were just very wild orcs, but here they had no place. They had no range update since 2016, so they had no new models. Nothing,
oh, wow.
So it was pretty straightforward that they are going away. So some people were surprised by that, but I like writings on the wall. We have orcs. They're pretty straightforward, who are Iron Jaws, your brutish, giant, green hulking boys who will find the biggest scrap ever and get into it and fight. And we have new orcs, which were released in the 3rd edition, called Cruel Boys, which are lankier, more cunning orcs, but still would like to a good scrap. So if I would describe it, Iron Jaws are brutal but cunning, but Cruel Boys are cunning but brutal, which is the entire shtick of the gods Gorka Morka. Gorka is brutal and Morka is cunning, but they have an amalgamation called Gorka Morka.
So for the 3rd starter sets in the red box, do you remember they had like orky people in there?
Those are Cruel Boys, correct.
Those are Cruel Boys. They were lovely models. I painted those and I was really happy with them. Yeah.
I still have them. I think they're amazing. They have really fun lore and like the ideas. Basically, if Iron Jaws are pretty much about like we just smash, we destroy everything. Cruel Boys are called that for a reason. You don't want to get caught by Cruel Boys. They will torture you. They will like maybe skin you alive. Maybe for their amusement, maybe for something else, or maybe to set up a trap for other people. But they're still looking for a good scrap as well, but they will use more underhanded methods. So traps, dirty tricks, it's an actual ability name from their books, and other nasty things. And they also like monsters. We still haven't seen a lot of monsters from their range, but they are in lore, they're known to like get the most nastiest beasts and use them in fight. So that would be Cruel Boys. And I think what they're doing for 4th edition, they will separate them. So Iron Jaws and Cruel Boys will be 2 different tomes instead of being one big tome called Orc War Clans, because they removed Bone Splitters, who are wild orcs, and instead will focus on 2 of those different factions and will develop them separately because they are representing kind of the same but different things, and they need a differentiation because Destruction doesn't have a lot of stuff going on for it right now, so they're not doing well in terms of models or just like faction retention.
Yeah.
So they're a little bit in the limbo, even though they were like poster boys as a main antagonist of 3rd edition. They were sidetracked really fast. They have a very small range, not a lot of updates updates, sadly. But I think as soon as they will figure out where they want to go with Aurochs, they will definitely start updating it. But there's not much to talk about Aurochs. I mean, if you've seen an Orc,
yeah,
that's an Orc.
standard, isn't it?
Yeah. I guess it's good to know that they were an ally of Order back in the days. Like when they were in the very beginning, they were actually, their god was friends with Sigmar because they fought a lot, and the Orc god liked that because he only wants to fight. So when Gorka Morka fought Sigmar, he liked being with Sigmar because he always would provide him good fights when fighting against Chaos. But with time he got bored of that, and he also said, "You're building cities, I don't like it. I don't want your order. I want like just constant scrap and everything." So Angels are doing their own thing, but sadly their plot lines are left in a limbo right now. Like there was something big building with Kragnus. Kragnus is a giant model with like giant horns, a center, right? Like it's like it's a centerpiece model that could be allied into any destruction faction. But he destroyed the city. Then he got teleported away, and that's it. He's right now somewhere stuck in the swamps for some reason. They're still trying to figure out where to go with him, I guess, in the lore. And I guess it's important to note why he woke up. That's how 3rd edition started. You know, I mentioned Necroquake from Nagash, right?
Yes.
So to prevent that, to like counteract all this dying energy, Alariel, the god of Sylvaneth and the god of life, decide like, I'll do my life magic throughout all the lands to counteract his undeath magic or death magic. So she did that, and that led to some unforeseen consequences of some stuff arising from death or from slumber. Like Kragnus woke up because he was buried under like a beast grave. It's called it's a giant sentient mountain in the realm of Gore, but he was stuck under there. And then when she used her life magic, it split open and Kragnus went out. He tried to find his people, found everything destroyed, and went on rampage. So that's how he became the leader for destruction forces for quite some time, and just decided to destroy everything. So 3rd edition was kind of about destruction, but then they immediately like sidetracked and decided to do everything else possible. I will not go into details of like what every god was doing at that point, or every faction will be here forever then, but this is the main takeaways from every edition. So yeah, continuing the destruction, we also have Gitz, who are Gloomspite Gitz or goblins. So
goblins,
just goblins, which were previously a part of the orc range. So basically you would be playing orcs with goblins in fantasy. Right now it's a self-sufficient range with just goblins and specifically Troguses, which are trolls back in the day. Now they're just called Trogus. So yeah, it's a very fun faction. If you like squigs, you want to play those. Squigs are just little mushroom creatures that like being created, I guess, and they change their shape depending on what they eat. It's a very weird faction. It's a very Looney Tunes faction, as in like, oh, this is very funny. I'm playing my funny little goblins. In lore, they're terrifying. They are terrifying. One of the most grimdark factions, I think. As an example, Scrag, I think his name is Scragrot or Scrag, goblin names. So he would capture people and feed them hallucinogenic mushrooms in such a huge quantities, they would start assimilating and slowly become mushrooms themselves while spouting nonsense, which he would think is actually words of prophets and oracles, as in because they're so high on mushrooms, and he wants to know the future. So that's how he sees into the future, by feeding people a lot of shrooms. And it's terrifying. Like the more you read about them, it's like they are very nasty. Like they will do some terrible things to people and things they catch, because they're pretty much all crazy. They chase a bad moon, which is an half god, half entity, question mark, we don't know. It's basically a yellow moon with a face on it. We don't know
I've seen that.
And so they chase it around because it gives them power. And not only that, they also think it's a representation of Gorka Morka. Everyone in Destruction venerates one god, which is Gorka Morka, but in different aspects. So they would venerate him as, I think he's a mad god, or basically this like yellow moon, like crazy moon or mad. It's bad moon, bad moon. It's called bad moon specifically.
Right.
So very funny, a lot of models, still some older models, some cool new models. Very fun range when you look at just like the models, look through them. One of the latest one was Troll King. It's basically a giant troll with a giant elven portal on top of his head. He was just asleep so long that people started building on top of him. So he woke up and he now has a portal on his head. Sometimes
cool.
it like like sponges magic, and he would smash it because he hates it. And when he smashes it, different magic effects happen, which is very fitting. So gameplay wise, you can play 3 armies inside of them, which is just trolls, which is my friend playing, just goblins, or like specifically a lot of squigs, which sometimes would eat your own goblins or something else. But they're very strong, like even for tournaments.
Yeah.
Very cool. And the last ones for destruction are ogres. Previously known as ogres. I know it sounds the same, but they are written differently. So it's OGRES or OGORS. So it's ogres.
Yes.
They're basically the same range that if you have ever seen an ogre back in the fantasy, it's the same range. They didn't have any new models. So
that faction is totally straight out of normal fantasy fiction, isn't it?
Yeah. They're just nomads and they like to eat. So their lore suffered a little bit. Like their lore in fantasy was amazing. Here it's like they also think about Gokamoka as a gulping god. That's why they eat so much and they venerate him through eating. And we're talking about eating everything, literally everything. People, rocks, animals, everything. Literally, they will hunt like the best dishes they can. They cannot be contained and like contain their hunger. They're always hungry, and that's why they're constantly on the move. They're a nomadic tribe. They would not serve, but like work as mercenaries for anyone who will provide him good food. If they find a good relationship or like symbiosis. We also have some models in the new range for Cities of Sigmar, which is basically human, with more civilized ogres who would like settle in cities and live with people. So they're very varied range, but the bulk of it is in destruction. They are one of the biggest contenders of going away next because no range update is also telling, and I hope it's not the case. They're very fun. They are very cool looking race, chunky boys, giant rotund people, and they have very interesting interactions, lore, and overall, I mean, if we're counting fantasy, and they have a lot of untapped potential to like expand their range. Because instead of magic, they have gastromancers who would eat different parts of the different animals, creatures, and cast magic based on that. So they would have a tribe of stone husk riders who will always ride with Everwinter. Basically, there's a tribe who's cursed that wherever they go, winter follows them, so they cannot settle. So they ride and like a winter follows. So they have to be sturdy, they have to be on the move every time, and they have to also be eating at all times because they need like sustenance, and they also are part of this always eating archetype, I guess.
Yeah.
And yeah, they have a lot of like things. Like some of the books I was reading about dwarves, specifically Kharadrons, they had an ogre serving on the ship. So he was a cook and he was just like a friend, and he was mostly talking about like food. Is that he like, I don't care what you pay me, just pay me in food. Like if you give me good food, I'll do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, but they're not prone like to chaos as well. Like one of the recent stories was about a group of ogres that followed a chaos warband of Slaanesh, and they found a wine, specifically this warband of Slaanesh found a wine called King's Wine or like Mad King's Wine. It's basically a wine that is fully seeped in madness of those flesh eaters that I was talking about. The Slaanesh guys drank that. I was like, nah, it's fine. And we're good. But then they gave it to ogres, and ogres went ballistic and just killed each other and ate each other because they were in this ravening delusions. Because those who have no kink between them to contain delusions, they will still become this ravening beast that would eat everything around. And with ogres craving, that was basically they would like just eat each other. Yeah, so that would be ogres, and that's it for destruction. So we got Aurochs, we have Gloomspite, and we have ogres. I think I didn't miss anyone. I hope so. It's only 3 factions. How could I forget? I mean, I rarely see them on the table, but Sons of Behemat, it's giants, basically. It's giant models. If you want to play 3 giant models like this on a table, you play Sons of Behemats. They're giants, and that's it.
It's the most D&D faction.
Yeah. Their father was killed by Sigmar, and they're very angry, and that's their lore. I don't know if they have anything else because they didn't have any release. They basically have one box and you build it 4 different times because that's all they have. They have one box that you buy.
Or you can do it different ways.
Yeah, you get I think 5 different Gargants. It's like King Broad, Gatebreaker, Kraken, Mega Gargant, War Stomper, Beast Smasher, and that's it. And you get smaller giants from Fantasy. They were repurposed into this race. So smaller giants are like this, and the big giants are like this. If we would compare, it's like if you play in 40k knights, giant robots.
Oh, I see.
This is a faction for you. You put 3 guys in. That's your entire army. Hold your objectives, fight people. Yeah, that's now we're definitely finished with destruction, and we are left with order and chaos. I think I'll leave chaos for last because there's a lot of chaos. Order, I'll just go a little bit faster, get through them. We already talked about Stormcast. I think the next logical step would be dwarfs because it was a big race in fantasy or faction. Here dwarfs were separated into 2 different factions called Fireslayers and Kharadron. If I would describe them, Fireslayers are... do you know Gotrek books or like...
I don't.
All right. Do you know the Slayers from fantasy? It's like naked dwarfs with giant axes and with a mohawk. Oh, okay.
I don't know.
If you can imagine a naked dwarf with an axe and a mohawk, you can kind of imagine an entire faction.
The mohawk is actually ringing a bell, and I will be putting pictures on top of what you talk about. So
yeah,
I'll find a picture.
Basically, Fire Slayers are slayers who were a specific type of dwarf back in fantasy who would go on adventure to atone for some kind of sin. They didn't care about their death; they wanted to find the best death. Games Workshop decided, well, that seems like everyone likes slayers, and we have such a good book called Gotrek and Felix. Everyone likes Gotrek. Let's make an entire faction out of those. After all these years, since 2016, we got only 2 boxes for Fire Slayers, and that's 2 units. Everything else is heroes. So for your entire army, you get 2 boxes, and one of them is just built 3 different ways, and everything else is heroes. The most sad range we have right now. It's terrifyingly bad. I'm very sad they separated dwarfs. I'm a big dwarf lover. I love a lot of dwarf races, but they're struggling. If they will not do something about them in 4th edition, they will definitely be the next on the chopping block. They look very the same-ish because you can only do so much with naked dwarfs and with orange hair and axes. The problem is their lore is incredible. They have lava elementals. They have giant dragons that they can ride. They have smaller dragon elves. They have rune mothers, basically dwarf ladies that like raise dragons. We didn't get any of that yet, and I hope they are just waiting to expand. But if they don't do anything, sadly they will just go away because it means that it doesn't sell. I don't think it sells well just because of that. But lore-wise, they're very fun. They are basically living in magma. Well, they have like holds or like castles, keeps, where they would be engulfed in magma. So to get there, they would go through magma. They don't care. They are basically blessed by their god Grimnir, and that god died when fighting a god beast. God beasts are from the way back when like Age of Myths happened. God beasts were clashing with gods and so on. So their god fought a specific god beast called Vultrix, I think. It's a giant magma dragon, and that's pretty much it. Died. And so Fireslayers was like, oh no, our god died, what are we gonna do? Well, everyone started saying that their god is not actually dead, but broken into pieces, so they will be trying to recollect and assemble their god again. So that's what they're doing. They're hunting for pieces of Grimnir, and they think that their god is stuck in gold, specifically in gold. It's a special kind of gold that contains traces of their god that only they can discern from normal gold, and they would use that gold to make runes for their body and embed them to get a little bit of power from their god. So they're very like patriarchal society. It's basically your normal dwarves, but like add a lot of magma to that and veneration to gods. They're mercenaries first and foremost because they want to get paid in gold, so they can find as much of gold as possible. It's spelled UR-gold, so gold. So yeah, and they're basically gonna give their services to anyone who pays well. Sometimes even chaos, rare cases like it's frowned upon, but like even they would sometimes serve chaos to if they get a big gold like haul out. So Yeah, that's 5 stars. That's pretty much it. Not a lot of lore, sadly, about them. But the only race that is interested in gold, because gold is depreciated in this world. Precious metals, nobody cares about them beside 5 stars. And they don't care about precious metals because of the Kharadrons, our other dwarves. Kharadrons are dwarves that were abandoned by their god, and they had to escape chaos somehow. So they escaped that chaos into the skies from their mountain home. So they are now living in the giant floating cities and in the land of on floating islands in the land of Kaimon or Chamon, however people pronounce that. I heard different pronunciation. It's a land of metal, one of the main magic, and it's basically whatever it says on the box. It's just a lot of metal. So for a long time, Kharadrons had all the gold in the world and everything, and every other mortal realms and every other faction looked at us like, you know what, we'll not use gold anymore. And they're like, oh no, we are poor again. But yeah, so that's why gold or silver, it doesn't matter now, because there's abundant, like so much material in that land of metal that nobody cares. So instead they try to find something else to substitute it with. And there are two things that are the main currencies in the world. First one is Realmstone. It's a concentrated ore of magic of this realm where you're in. And it's so concentrated that it will change whoever is holding it, give you incredible powers, and it was used a lot in Age of Myth, but it's now not used anymore because it has too many consequences. And the second one is Aqua Giranis. It's a water of life from the realm of life. Basically, imagine from D&D if everyone would be bartering in potions and health potions. That's how you can look at it. It's basically a magic water that will allow you to heal anything, and it's used as the main currencies in the RPGs. So basically you use your potions as a trading mechanic in a lot of RPGs related to Age of Sigmar, which is a fun mechanic. I really like using them because my players sometimes would be, do I heal right now or do I leave it for the thing I really wanted? So
Yeah.
it's kind of fun. Yeah, and so the Kharadrons, going back to them, after they were like bereft of the riches, they started mining everything around to find something else, and they found a thing called Aether Gold. Aether Gold is, God, how do you explain it? It's a metallic dust that has a lot of powers that they use to power their machines. It's basically their fuel, but they also press it into ingots or like refine it, and you got your steampunk dwarfs. They're basically the main race who is like over technological in this entire space. Like you would get actual villages who has like, we don't have even like a lamp, and then Kharadrons are flying on the giant ships. They have floating cities. They have well, a lot of people have guns here, but
Steampunk?
yeah, they kind of look steampunkish if you look at the Kharadrons, but they are using Aether Gold for the like entire society. I love Kharadrons, one of my main armies. Aesthetically wise, I didn't like them at first, but the more I go into that, the more fun it is. They are kind of like a next step for dwarves. They're not as hard-headed, but they are very. They blame their ancestors for whatever happened, that they trusted Sigmar or stayed there. So they're like very forward-thinking. They're trying to develop industry. So they're at odds with a lot of like nature-aligned races, right? Factions. They are the one who is pushing industry forward, and they're also very meritocratic society. So meritocracy would be the main defining feature for them. So whoever has the most amount of either gold or like funds in any way or form, whatever, like is coming used as funds in the realm, would be the most important Kharadron. And to prevent just mass murder, because they get their gold rushes whenever they get like a hint of treasure or something, they get like very obsessed with it. It's basically the dwarf thing from back in fantasy. They have laws. They have Kharadron code, so if you don't follow the code, you basically like will be ostracized from the community. And this is their main feature. Their code is so difficult and so complex. They have like entire people dedicated to just learning the code and like interpreting the code or writing the code. And that's why like nobody likes to make contracts with Kharadrons. It's usually like written. They're basically the best lawyers in the entire mortal realm. So yeah, very like how companies do uses the NDA NDAs and stuff
Oh, yeah.
to do businesses. This is them. This is like if they do business with you, you will have a contract, and that contract will like have some passages that you will only know after they will point at it. And if you don't uphold that, you will get some kind of consequences or repercussions. So yeah, fun guys, very fun. They are moving in direction. I think they're moving in direction of going back to Earth, of like because they are in the sky and came on. They want to go back to their mountain holds and retake them because they were hints that they will be giving like golems and other cool automatons to become the battle line as a melee faction, because right now they're very much shooting factions. They don't have a lot of melee. Mostly you fly around and shoot. I love them as a range, but their gameplay is very boring. You put a lot of Kharadrons on one ship, fly around and just shoot. In a game which is a lot about melee, it's very sad.
Yes.
So I think 4th edition gonna address that, so I hope we're gonna get there. But an incredible range, nonetheless. So I have a lot of them painted. I sent you pictures. So. Yeah, that were Kharadrons. What else in order? So that's for dwarves. That's all the dwarves we have. I have my ideas what they're gonna do with 4th edition, because Fire Slayers are not doing well. Either they're gonna combine them back together and then maybe call them Reclaimers of Karak of their mountain holds. So because Kharadrons need melee range and Fire Slayers need a like ranged unit, so maybe they'll combine them back and make like this unique interpretation, but I doubt it. It's just like I guess it's wishful thinking. Knowing GW, it's probably be like we'll focus on whatever sells, which is probably Kharadron, and drop whatever does not sell. So we'll see how that goes. Order. What is next in Order? Order has the biggest amount of factions. Cities of Sigmar I already mentioned. It's just basically your normal human guy. It's cities. It's back in the days it was dwarves, elves, and humans. Now it's mostly humans. How it's gonna look in 4th edition, I don't know. If the ranges for elves and dwarves will be updated, but for now only humans were updated. It basically was a faction for people who had a lot of models from fantasy and were very angry at GW that they can't use them anymore. So this is for them to play. Was for a long time this was a faction with their very old fantasy models. Now it has range update. And yeah, it's now a self-sufficient faction, kind of like Astra Militarum for 40k. It's your regular jaw. I'm trying my best for the realm, trying to retake lands back from chaos, going on a crusade called Dawnbringer Crusade. This is where the lore at. So they're sending a lot of crusades and when the Cities of Sigmar update happened, and they're trying to retake back space from chaos and establish new cities. There's not a lot of cities controlled by Order world. Who is next? Next will be... I guess we can go to elves. There are 4 types of elves.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, so we got... let's go in an order of their creation, which is Idenus Deepkin first. So what happened in fantasy, when I said, remember, like Chaos 1?
Yeah.
So every Chaos god, like, I'm gonna eat all the souls, and Slaanesh was like, elf souls are mine. So Slaanesh, god of excess and everything, ate all the elven souls. And besides, I think, which were Taclis, Malarian, and... Malekith. Yeah, sorry. Taclis, Malekith, and Tyrion, who were like prominent characters in fantasy, but now they are elven. So when the Mortal Realms reformed, we can skip all this that we talked about. They caught Slaanesh, they binded them in with very powerful magic because they got some godly powers now. And they were like, we need to get elves back. How do we do this? So they started slowly extracting souls from Slaanesh. That process was not without problems, because one of the first people who escaped Slaanesh was Marathi. So Marathi was one of the... I'm not going to go into the fantasy, but in short, she's a very powerful dark elves mage, but now she's like closer to godhood, but she's one of the first who escaped Slaanesh. The story is very hazy about it, how she did it, but she was one of the crucial factors of how Slaanesh was caught and what magic was used to catch Slaanesh. After Slaanesh got caught, every elf god started working on getting back souls, and first souls that were extracted were Idenus Deepkin. Specifically, it was elves. They made them and like, oh, I think you're broken. Let me kill you and start again, said Teclis. So those elves looked at Teclis like, uh-oh, and just escaped. And they escaped under the sea. So this is our elf factions, at least under the sea, or sea elves. That's why they're called Ideness Deepkin. Very interesting faction. I think lore-wise, incredible. Aesthetic-wise, if you like sea, sharks, crabs, and everything, that's the faction for you.
Okay.
They're basically second-hand elves because their souls are broken. They have, whenever the new like Ideness Deepkin is being born, they like can be born with no soul or like a fragmented soul.
Right.
So they're born without eyes, and they become like this weird, not creature. They're still like people or like elves in a sense, but in their society they become like a lower caste, and only like trueborn who has like actual souls will be given positions of power and like be in like your main characters basically. They are very fun because they are looking for a way to get rid of this like fragmented soul ailments that ails everyone. They basically don't have immortality or long lifespans. Sometimes they have lower lifespans. So what they do is they hunt for souls. They raid people, creatures, or anyone else and steal their soul. So they're like raiders. They will go on shore and steal souls and use those souls to extend their lifespans or as like sustenance.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the whole idea for the Ideness. I think they're very fun, but they're not explored very much. Sadly, didn't had a lot of updates. Very gorgeous models. Achelian King, Eidolon with a cape made out of waterfall.
Oh. Yeah.
They are like beautiful. You rarely see them. They're very fun on gameplay wise. Was very well made for 3rd edition. They basically would have an ability called high tide, low tide, and depending on the tide, depending on the round, you'll have different. You are better at defending when it's low tide. You are faster and stronger on high tide.
Interesting. Yeah.
It's a very cool faction. It's basically a new take on elves. If you would think about it, it's not your normal elves. Speaking of other elves, we have Daughters of Khaine, which is just a matriarchal society for Marathi that I was talking about, that escaped Slanesh Gullet. She has her own fanatical elf girls that are ready to kill all the chaos in the world because they hate chaos, and they are called Order, but they do a lot of questionable stuff like sacrifices, killing a lot of people, hating everyone but I guess themselves. And yeah, they're very vertical hierarchy there. They're trying to backstab each other all the time to be the best hag mother or like hag priestess. They have a lot of funny names. And before they were just basically a leftover from Dark Elves range. They were just like those like witch elves. It was basically Dark Elves range with like a lot of Amazon-looking elves. It's basically all girls. But after certain things in lore happened, Marathi unveiled that she is now almost half a god. She was previously not a god, and then she ate a lot of realm stone and became a god. A giant snake lady, a beautiful model, and she revealed more. We got more of the range, which is Gorgons. It's basically like Medusa, you know, like Lamias, and we got some girls with wings. That's the most we got so far for them, but so far it's very like remnants of Dark Elves. Even though they got new models, still remnants of Dark Elves, so they need a range update as well. Skipping on those, we have True Elves, who were revealed like 2019. That was 5 years ago. But time flies. So Lumineth are what would happen when you actually resurrect elves properly. So you get the souls back, and they're like, here are your perfect elves. If you ever think about high elves, that's it. That's your elves. Your like generic elves. We are the best. We are very egoistical. We think we will live forever. You all suck. We are elves.
Yeah.
So this is the default elves. Of course, what are elves without hubris? So Lumineth were like so good at everything that they tried to achieve higher and higher peaks. And when they reached a certain threshold, all wars broke out. All hell let loose. And Slanesh emerged in the realm of Hish, which is the realm of light. And now they are in a very precarious situation of a lot of stuff being killed. And they were like, oh, that sucks. Let's try to reign back and try to be in touch with ourselves and everything around us, and so this will never happen again. So they became a faction of balance. They have a lot of Asian motifs. Like if you look at their range of luminous, they have like this calligraphy, hats from like Chinese emperors and everything. And they're very about nature and connection to nature in a way, not like your usual elves like wood elves, but as here's a mountain, I will be as calm as a mountain, or I'll be connecting with the spirits of elements to be proper. They have two teachings to elves, Teclis, Tyrion. One is about war, another one about magic, one about artistry, another one about self-improvement. I don't remember. I'm not big on elves. But
That's right.
other than that, it's just like you're perfect elves. If you want to play elves, that's for you. They actually have a lot of interesting lore. I had to read about some because we were creating some characters for Soulbound, the RPG. They have a really cool ritual. If you want to become the strongest warrior and connect with the spirits of mountains, they bury themselves alive in the mountain soil while being on the mountain and stay there for several days to become connected.
Cool.
And then they become as unmovable as a mountain. So yeah, they work with human, of course, with order. They're like as order as you can be with all the elf shenanigans of like still political intrigues, some other stuff. Very uptight. They're all about symmetry, and that's that. Oh yeah, they have a lot of cow motifs. I don't know why. If you look at their stuff, they have a lot of cows, like cow helmets, a giant calf half god. If you've seen their model range, there's like a giant mountain king, which is a giant cow, or minotaur with a giant hammer. So they are looking unique for elf. And some people hate it or like it. They have, instead of usual horses, they have kangaroos. They look like kangaroos. I love them, my wife loves them, but some people hate them like with a passion.
Wow.
So that's Luminous. And the last elves are Sylvaneth. Sylvaneth are wood elves, but with a twist. Sylvaneth are not actual elves, but souls of elves preserved from the world that was, that were not eaten by Slaanesh, by the goddess of life called Alariel. So she saved those souls, they put those souls in the soil, they bloomed and became Sylvaneth, which is basically, if you combine dryads with elves, that's what you get. A lot of tree motifs, they look like trees, they have the souls poking out of them.
I have those.
Yeah, and they are very straightforward. I really like the lore. They have a World Wide Web called Spirit Song. It's basically every Sylvaneth can talk with another Sylvaneth in a second, because they're all connected by one giant elf Wi-Fi, as I call it in our game.
It's like Dungeons and Dragons have like with mushrooms, myconids.
Yeah, for sure. And they're fun. I think they're very interesting, and they have different stories about them. Not like they're not only just like, oh, we are like unthinking automatons that are connected by a spirit song. No, they actually, even though they are born and they know what they need to do, they carry with themselves like thousands of years of experience and other lives that soul lives. Sometimes they get disconnected from the spirit song in rare cases. Sometimes they would strike deals with humans. Sometimes they would be just protectors of forest and everything, like alive. They're the biggest opposers of Nurgle. Nurgle hates them because basically this cycle of life, like they cannot die. Whenever they die, the soul comes back into the soul pod, then they resurrect and the soul continues to life. Nurgle hates that. And Nagash hates that because Nagash is like, give me the soul, it's mine. And he's like, no. We reuse the soul over and over. So yeah, we got Alariel herself as a model on a giant beetle. So we got a god fighting in a battle, which is fun. Oh yeah, we also have a model for Nagash, very angry, bony wizard. I always imagined him with the voice of Skeletor from He-Man. Like, Sigmar, I'm gonna destroy you. I don't know why. That's why I guess Nagash and Ossiarchs are funny. Because So yeah, those are Sylvaneth, and we are done with elves. There are one more type of elves, they are not revealed yet, called Dark Elves from the Realm of Shadow, called Ulgu. This will be the elves that serve Malekith, now called Malarian, the Shadow King. It's basically the other elf god. We don't have them yet. They are mentioned everywhere in lore. Probably coming when, we don't know. Everyone is thinking 4th edition, so this edition probably will get an expand on species, because every new edition they introduce at least one new race, so we'll see. Because previous edition it was Cruel Boys and Lumen. I'm trying to remember. Yeah, it was Cruel Boys and Lumen. But we are done with elves. Finally, one would say. Seraphon. This is the last order race that is left. It's dinosaurs. You like dinosaurs, you play Seraphon.
Oh yeah, I know those, yeah.
Yeah, If you like dinosaurs, that's it. Are those the same Seraphons that are from the fantasy, which were called Lizard Men and Lizard People? Yes, it's the same. It's the same guys, because they escaped. They were like, oh no, the world is being destroyed. Board the ships, because they are the beings from stars. So they boarded the starships and like, bye, and they left. And then when the mortal realms appeared, they're like, yeah, and we're back. That's it. That's the entire lore. I mean, they're basically bio-robots. Even if they were the same in the fantasy, they're basically programmable bio-robots. That's the best way I can explain. They're created from spawn pools. They're not like procreating. They're just made of stuff, and then they are programmed to do things. So they're basically dinosaur robots, but bio. So they have some kind of a great plan that they're following, whatever that is. And they know how things will happen, so they're following that great plan to prevent chaos from ruling everything, and they're not doing well. I'll tell them that. So, they're not preventing much. I don't think, like, they had a huge range update, which they thoroughly needed.
Yeah.
So dinosaurs are definitely staying. A lot of people like dinosaurs. In terms of lore, I think they don't know what to write about. At least it looks that way. They didn't have any lore stuff besides some Warcry. Like, in Warcry, one of the ship crash landed. The latest edition of Warcry, second edition, was you trying to find the ship, because it has some kind of tech on the ship that can be used for stuff like Realm Shaper orbs can be used to terraform land, because they're actually a space race, but not quite. I don't know. It's weird. It's like they have remnants of old lore, but they're new, and at the same time they're not. It's a mess. They just need like a proper... We already know they're dinosaurs, but they need like a better place in this world. Right now they're like, yes, we're with Order. Why? Because we hate chaos, and that's it. Yeah, everything else we don't care. It's like they would clash with people. That's it for Order. We're done. Sorry for taking so long, but we're done with Order.
Fine.
The last one is Chaos.
Cool. The coolest ones.
The best ones was the last. Yeah. I guess I'll start and immediately end with Beasts of Chaos, which were like, hey, Beasts of Chaos are very cool. Removed from 4th edition. No more Beasts of Chaos. So if you like your mutants, no more mutants, sadly, for you. There are rumors it happened because there is an internal rivalry in Games Workshop between departments like 40k, AOS, and Old World, and Beast of Chaos were basically pulled into the Old World, and GW doesn't want you to double deep, so if you buy one army, you can play both.
Right.
So, yeah, we don't know. It's internal politics. It's a black box. We will never actually know what is happening. Maybe it was like a decision that they made like 5 years ago based on sales. We don't.
Yeah.
But Beast of Chaos are no more, which is sad. My friend plays Beast of Chaos. Very cool range. Very awesome, actually, lore. But sadly, no reason to talk about them because you will get rules until 2025. Right, so Slaves to Darkness, it's people who chose the Chaos side during everything that was going down and be like, yeah, we'll serve Chaos. It's the Slaves to Darkness. It's basically pretty straightforward. You venerate Chaos Gods, you get gifts, and you fight stuff. This is basically a very varied range because remember I said Age of Chaos went before Age of Sigmar, so this range will be infinitely expandable because Chaos rules most of the land. So we get like, okay, this race, this faction was actually part of the Chaos because forever. So they have like so much leeway into like who can become a part of Chaos. So it will be infinitely expandable range. The latest update was Barbarians, which is if you're into Conan the Barbarian, Dark or Savages, it's just an update for that. People who are very nuanced and like we serve Chaos only because we need to survive, not because we want to. So they will oppose Chaos actually sometimes they would align with other people, and they actually like treat all the gods the same. As in like, oh, Sigmar, it's also a Chaos god. We don't care. Like, all the gods for them are the same. So they're like, God of death, God of lives, they don't care. They will serve whoever they need to survive because this is how the world is right now. Gods are real. We need to survive. Very nuanced race. But yeah, nothing to talk about Slaves to Darkness, to be honest. Which is weird because they are one of the main antagonists, I guess, but they're very straightforward. They have Archeon on a giant 3-headed dragon leading the charge. You get a lot of playstyles in the game, very strong range, very powerful models, looking cool, had a lot of updates, even more coming. They have recently revealed Dawnbringer's Crusade will continue with a giant lady on a dragon with a spear called Spear of Archeon. She's like her general, his general, so she's very cool. Cool range. Sadly, not a lot to talk about because Chaos is mostly about like unique people, or like what they did throughout the story, and not like the range as a whole. We just know they won at one point, and that's it. So they are the winner, and we are trying to take back stuff from them. I guess if I would draw a comparison, you know, in Star Wars Empire won, we need to do something with that. So this is the Empire of this franchise. Next is, do I go into Godsley or do I go someone else? Well, I mean, we don't have much choice. We have Skaven, which are reds.
Yep.
It's a sentient rats. They will be the main antagonists of 4th edition. They were preparing to resurface for a long time. Skaven are very hubris race, as in like whatever they do, they are their own undoing at all times. Actually, incredibly successful. If not for them, the entire world that was not destroyed. They foiled Nagash plans several times. They're basically Deus Ex Machina in the world of Warhammer. Whenever something needs to be done or prevented, you can just throw Skaven at it and it will happen because it's Skaven. Entire range is about sentient rats who hate everyone, including other rats, who are all about devouring, destruction, and everything, and like chaos in general, as in like just like soul chaos everywhere. And yeah, they are very right. They have tons of lore about them. I will not go into that. Basically, there's a 5th unofficial chaos race, as in like their chaos god is Great Horned Rat, and other chaos gods hate them. But the Great Horned Rat is basically an official god of ruination. So it's basically a god of ruin. Yeah, and Great Horned Rat always has plans. And the latest plan was, for some reason, striking an alliance with an Archeon who is serving 4 gods, chaos gods, behind the gods' back, and now doing something in 4th edition. We don't know. That's why I'm looking forward for 4th edition. Skaven are planning something big, because they were previously they were not living in the mortal realm. They were living between realms. Basically, you know how rats live between boards, like in houses between walls. That's how they were actually living in the realms between. They had a huge city called Blight City, and in the 4th edition, they just appeared with their Blight City in the middle of the realm of fire called Akshi. They like just appeared all over the place, exploded half the realm, and be like, it's time to party. And whatever is happening in 4th edition, we don't know. They been doing a lot in terms of lore. I will not even recap half of that or like any of that. It's too much. But I'll just tell that one of the most interesting factions to read about, or like if they're like an antagonist, always fun. Incredible characters. Always sneaky, always backstabbing to each other, would align themselves with almost anyone if it profits themselves, like in any way or form. Will back, will cover, will prostate in front of you, but will always backstab you. So those are Skaven. Consider themselves the bestest faction by themselves, and then they will explode because they will have overcharged their cannon, which happens whenever I play against my friend. He will shoot me, and then his cannon will explode, killing all the rats. That was fun. Yeah, they will have a range update. Like a lot of rats were so old, like literally 20 years old models, and finally 4th edition will come in and update their entire range. So that's why 4th edition is important. Skaven players have been waiting for years. Every year they were saying, this is the year when we're gonna get a Skaven update.
Right.
Never. But now they're finally getting it. And then what is left is just 4 chaos gods. So we got Tzeentch, we got Khorne, and we got Slaanesh and Nurgle. Nurgle, god of pestilence, god of plagues, also god of life, cycle of life and rebirth. He hates even though, which is weird, he hates stagnation. He wants the cycle to continue of like life, rot, decay, and so on, consume. He's called Grandpa Nurgle. He's a very bubbly fella that will feed you all kind of plagues and terrible things, but will do it jolly and be fun about it. Because he's like, everyone who worships Nurgles are basically depicted as your best friend, because he basically says, life sucks, let me give you eternal life, but with a cost. And he gives you like all this terrible, illnesses, plagues, you look terrible, but you're happy about your life because this is a blessing from your grandfather. Yeah, if you like disgusting stuff, you like very resilient faction, you want to play a very mechanically interesting faction, that's for you. I think all the chaos is very interesting mechanically, especially in 3rd edition. I think it will stay in 4th, but because Nurgle is about cycle of life and death and decay, they work the same on the table. So when you use them, you would generate pestilence points, and like everything will go in cycle. Damage, like buffs, debuffs, like it goes in cycles, and it's very fun. A very cool range. You got your mortals, you got your demon, whatever you want. Demons are old as heck, but it's better than 40k, where you just get demons and nothing else. Maybe Death Guards, but it's just Space Marines, but no.
Yeah.
Tzeentch, it's a Lord of Change. It's a Master of Fates, someone who changes the world around him for the sake of change. It's like nothing should stagnate, so he's not a fan of Nurgle and his stuff, but he like everything. He's also representing progress, so like because if there will be no progress, there will be no change. So he supports progress, he supports knowledge and like cravings for knowledge in its excessive form, as in like, oh, you want knowledge, I'll give you all the knowledge in the world, deal with it. All about magic and manipulating magic fates and everything. Has a mechanic called Dice of Fate, where you'll roll dice and just use them differently throughout the game, as in like you roll values and then you can use them anywhere in the game. It's like miracle dice if you play Sisters of Battle in 40k, or if you not, it's just you basically can see the future because you did that in the past. I don't know. It's so weird talking about the Chaos Ghosts, but it feels like information about them is everywhere. But this is the gist of it. They're always the antagonists, always doing something for their sake, which is funny, but also you think, oh no, they want to destroy everyone, but if they will destroy everyone, there will be no more souls to consume, no more humans. So it's a game for them. That's why it's called a great game that they participate in. And when they participate in a great game, it's all about how to get more souls, how to rile up mortals to fall into chaos. And Khorne. Khorne is, we talked in the very beginning, it's a god of bravery, god of fighting, god of skulls for the Skulltron, blood for the blood god, all about hitting your face very hard to see how many teeth will fly out. Never backstabbing. If you try to backstab, you will be cursed for all eternity, like Skarbrand did, because Tzeentch said, hey Skarbrand, the best demon general of Khorne, what if you can become the new Khorne? So go stab Khorne in the back. And he stabbed Khorne in the back. Khorne was like, really? So he slapped him so hard that that Skarbrand now forgets everything most of the time. He's always angry, and his basically penitence is to give Khorne all the skulls in the world, and he then forgets half the time why he's doing that. And yeah, so Skarbrand is all about, it's because he did that, Khorne hated him, and he like hit him, and he said like no, and so he's now have to bring Khorne all the skulls to atone for his sins, but he never said the amount, so he's still atoning for the sin of backstabbing Khorne. Slaanesh, god of access. Well, before we go that, Khorne hates magic first and foremost. That's why Tzeentch also did that. If you play Khorne, you will never play magic. You will have your priests to send prayers to Khorne. You will use blood tokens and blood ties, which is just basically you do fighting, you get blood tokens. You get damage, you get blood tokens because you spill blood. Basically, whenever you spill blood in any way or form, you get special tokens that you use to summon demons, get buffs, and do other cool stuff. I guess you play Khorne, right? So
yes.
Anything specific that you like about Khorne?
Just the fact that they look the coolest. Like my Korgorath models was the first one I painted and went, oh, that is good. No, I just like the demonic sort of looking things, and yeah, it's just cool.
I love demons as well. I am mainly Slaanesh player. That's why I left Slaanesh for the last, I guess. A big fan of Slaanesh because Slaanesh is mostly people think Slaanesh is all about it's like drugs, rock and roll, but this specifically is excess in any way or form. It can be gluttony, it can be artistry, it can violence, it can be any feelings that you have, but in excess. So Slaanesh is very wide range. One of my favorite models are two of those. This Infernal and Rapturous is the most gruesome model ever created.
Right.
Yeah, it's
Is that a harp? Playing a harp?
Yeah, it's a harp made of human because she's playing on a guy who reached such a peak in arts that he didn't know how to continue forward, so the demon snatched him and basically made an instrument out of him. So she would actually be his muse for a long time to push him to the new heights, and then when he would basically be on a verge of like, I don't know what to do next, but he reached his peak in music, that's where she snatches him, and he like in a complete joy of being the instrument of like, it's very excessive. And the second model that I have is called Glottis. I sent some pictures of him. Glottis Arscolian. My favorite model is a giant diorama piece of a guy who ate so much that he became, excessive and became kind of not a demon prince, but sponsored by Slaanesh. So he travels the realms and eats everything, but he can never be satiated, not in a way as Ogres do, but in a way of like he can't find anything tasty. So he eats everything. Like he drank that maddening wine that I was talking about.
Yep.
When he gives the Ogre, he drank and is like, nah, it's mid. It's like it's fine.
Mm.
Even though everyone is going insane over this, why?
Yeah.
For a second he sees this illusion of like everyone being courtly ladies and men. This was a story recently released in the Warhammer community, and it was only for a second, and then he was like, "Oh, that's it. That's all I get." Like from this crazy vine, and he was like kind of disappointed.
Mm.
So yeah, he travels around. He's trying his best to find the most tasty morsel. But yeah, they're doing their own thing. Slaanesh right now is godless because Slaanesh is being kept by elves, like somewhere hidden in the realm. We know where he is in lore. They don't know. Slaanesh is hidden between two mortal realms called Ul and Gish. Ulgish. So it's called Ulgish because it's between Hish and Ulgu. So there's a special sub-realm called Ulg. That's why nobody can find them. It's basically if you would hide someone between the sun and the moon, something like that. So between the world of shadow and light. So Slaanesh is slowly kind of spreading their tendrils and trying to attract their followers. I think like there's a lot of lore right now and like development going around Slaanesh specifically because it's the only Chaos God that is being imprisoned, right? Like it never happened before. And Slaanesh is in prison not by normal chains, but what do you call that properly? By ideas. As in, like, all the chains are made, for example, this chain can only be broken by the biggest betrayal in the world. This chain can be broken by this, and so on. So it's like, it's the most powerful magic the Elven gods could come up with, but actually several chains were already broken, and Slaanesh substituted them for illusion magic, for illusions. So Elven gods still think that Slaanesh fully bound, but I think several chains were broken out of, I want to say 13 chains, but I don't remember the actual amount. But yeah, so we had some interesting things happening in relation to Slaanesh, like Marathi, the elven goddess now, half goddess of daughters of Khaine, got her godhood because she went back into Slaanesh, absorbed souls of previous gods from Slaanesh, but Slaanesh affected her, and she became this half snake, half elven person. So I think like everyone has like this theory that Slaanesh actually enjoying this because success, and she's like, oh yeah, I'm bound, cool. It's like, it's my king. So Slaanesh is just there bound to this sub realm and while they're being drained of elven souls, but it almost feels like it's a part of the plan of Slaanesh. So yeah, and this is what the Slaanesh forces are doing right now, trying to find Slaanesh. So they're going around Hish, Ulgu a lot, but because they're feeling them, but they can't find them because it's between the realms. It's the most kept secret between all the elves. The main characters for Slaanesh would be that Glutus guy that I told about. One of the well-known Keeper of Secrets called Shalaxi Hellbane. It's the best Keeper of Secrets of Slaanesh. It's this giant demon. Like they said, it's the most beautiful one. It's basically a giant goat demon.
Right.
Take whatever you want from that. Shalaxi is to be called the best hunter. So there is that. What else? Hunter and duelist. And we have Sigvald, who is from fantasy. Back in fantasy, there was a mortal called Sigvald, and he was so vain that he became worshipper of Slaanesh and then became her champion. And with time, he was basically almost killed in the world that was, and then was sealed in the mirror because he's vain, so he became a part of the mirror, and he was cursed to basically never see his reflection again, which is terrible for him. He like just loves his reflection, he loves himself, so he was stuck in mirror forever after the world that was destroyed, until that mirror was found by several people. It was basically traveled around the world, and he could only show other people in their best state, so he hated every second of being inside that mirror because he couldn't look at himself. And the way he got out is he found a Kharadron merchant who found this mirror, looked at himself and like, oh, I look the best. So but with time, Sigvald learned how to change the images. So he started showing his ugly self and like ugly parts of this Kharadron. So he like got rid of the mirror, but then Slaanesh forces learned about the mirror, attacked the Kharadrons, killed them, stolen the mirror. He started doing the same to a Slaanesh general. So he broke the mirror in rage because they're very excessive, vainglorious. They want to be the best. Sigvald got unleashed, and Sigvald was like, finally, then he killed everyone. He didn't care. He just killed everyone because he was stuck for so long. And yeah, and he's back into the realms leading Slaanesh forces. Very cool model. Got an update. Just looking fun. Sadly, terrible model in gameplay wise. I hope he will be better in 4th edition. Great centerpiece otherwise. And we're done.
That's really, really educated me, and I hope obviously other people. And if there's anything that anyone wants to correct us on or embellish
please
and
do.
says, oh, I can tell you all about Skaven in particular, whatever, then the invite is there.
Yeah, I know I made mistakes. Please correct us in comments. That would be helpful. This was just from the top of my head.
Yeah.
It's like a retelling of how I remember it. I have so much material on Age of Sigmar. It all get mixed together, and I have very specific knowledge about some characters, maybe less knowledge about other. Yeah.
Thank you so very much, and we will see you again when we discuss your homemade project.
Sure, I made a huge expansion for Warcry. If you played Warcry, it's a skirmish game. If you have any miniatures or want to play a smaller game in Age of Sigmar world, you can play Warcry. It's very fun. It's very fast-paced. Played on a small board. And I made a huge expansion with 98 pages where you can develop your warband, travel the lands, explore a giant map, and go through like a huge narrative campaign while leveling up your heroes, getting attached to them, losing them, and doing all kind of fun stuff that you usually do in Warcry, but even more. That's basically what I did.
Well, until we see you again, my friend, thank you so much.
Thank you as well for having me here, and sorry for talking your ears off.